Howdy everyone. Hope everyone's doing well and keeping busy. Welcome to part 2 of our guitar cabinet build series. Yes, it's been ages, and for those handful of people who have been asking, we're sorry. The rig's actually been done for a year and has been getting regular use. All the content is shot, and we've been chipping away at the series in the rare breaks that we get between gigs, so hopefully everything will be wrapped up soon. In today's episode, we'll be covering all the carpentry. So by the end of this one, we should have our shells built and ready for detailing and finishing. Let's go. Before we dive in, another shout out to our friends in Electric Magma for the soundtrack. Check them out at electricmagma.com and to Next Gen Guitars in Nepean, Ontario. If you're enjoying this series, please like, subscribe, share, and hit the bell to get notifications for new content. If you have an idea for something you'd like to see down the road on a BP video, more builds, animation, or production tutorials, I don't know, leave us a comment, and if we use your idea, we'll shoot you a free Bad Pixel care package with some swag. Speaking of which, check out badpixel.ca for Bad Pixel merch. If you like your content lean and you don't mind spoilers, check out our Bad Pixel Builds Instagram Reels for a lightning-fast, BS-free, 1-minute build of a 112 cabinet. Most of the details of these big boys here will be there with none of the yapping or the wait time between episodes. Action-packed. Okay, we're going to jump right into this one by moving our CAD model over to our CNC using CAM software. We'll be using Carbide Create, which is a free 2.5D CAM package from Carbide 3D, the makers of the awesome Shapeoko platform. Carbide Create isn't the most sophisticated thing out there, but we only need a few contour cuts and pockets, so for this build, this will be more than adequate. We'll be using the CNC machine to cut the walls and baffles for our cabinets, so we'll end up with a total of 12 pieces, making 2 boxes from 7 files. 2 12 side panels, 2 12 115 side panels, 2 12 baffle, 2 12 115 baffle, back covers, and the top and bottom panels are identical and universal to both caps, so we'll be cutting 4 copies of that particular part. First step in CAM is usually to block out some basic details like stock, material, thickness, and size. At this point, you'll want to take those calipers out again and triple check the thickness of the actual pieces of stock you'll be cutting before it hits the table. Now, once again, don't trust the retailer's description. As mentioned in the last episode, the 3/4 inch stock that we bought for these cabs turned out to be about 0.71. If there's any discrepancy between your model and the stock thickness, you'll need to go back and adjust the model before moving on. Once we import the DXFs, we need to lay things out. We try to plan this out so you're creating as little waste as possible. Some packages will do this for you automatically, but with our workflow, this step had to be done manually. Bringing in all the panels to one file really helps to visualize and lay things out efficiently. Once the layout is sorted, we'll define pockets and contour cuts, including depths, etc. This step will vary a lot from package to package. Our final step in setting things up here is to throw some tabs where appropriate to make sure that the parts don't go flying when the tool head makes its way through the stock. Now we check our work with a simulation. If it looks good, we can spit out the G-code file. Basically, G-code is a program telling the machine where to position the tool head at any given time. The process is identical to prepping G-code for your 3D printer. It's important to select a tool that's right for the stock that you're using. For most ply, a standard upcut bit works great, but for Baltic birch, the tear out can get gnarly. I found a 1/4 inch spiral downcut bit, like this one, worked best and gave super clean results quickly. Now that we're all set up in CAM, we need to cut down our stock to our layout sizes. One tip for Baltic birch, laying a strip of masking tape down along the cut line will help keep a clean edge and prevent tear out. Before every job, we need to zero so the machine knows where the tool is in relation to the stock. Depending on your CAM package, there should be several reference points to choose from as an origin. For larger pieces, like the ones we're cutting here, the center of the stock gave the best results consistently. For holding down large pieces, these 3D printed clamps work great. They're super easy to print with PETG, link in the description to the model on Thingiverse. In our first few cuts, attempts were made to gang up a whole bunch of parts in this single job. This makes sense for smaller objects, but in the end we found it's usually best to cut one large piece at a time. On this project, a single panel can take up to an hour to cut. The longer the job takes, the higher the probability of drift and accuracy problems. Also, if you avoid gang-ups on a large job, material and wasted machine hours are kept to a minimum when something goes wrong, which it will. Once a job comes off the CNC, it's time to cut the tabs and clean up the pieces to prep them for assembly. We found a Dremel with a wood cutting blade was the best way to free a part. When the part is free, we do a quick pass with the trim router just to clean up any tab residue. A light sanding on all surfaces with 150 grit, and we're all good for assembly. Be extra careful when sanding the edges on birch. Gloves are a good idea here. I got nailed with a few huge splinters during cleanup. After a quick dry fit, grab the wood glue, some clamps, and a brad nail. Working around the cabinet, triple check all the corners with a speed square and measure after each panel is added. These shells came together in about 20 minutes each with only minimal influencing. Once the shells are glued up, you can drop a few pieces of strategically placed bracing along the inside edges to help prevent any corners from drifting out of alignment when you're throwing this thing around during assembly and finishing. In this design, the baffle is installed from the back at the end of assembly. So if installing bracing at this point, we'll need to leave clearance to slide the baffles into position when installed. A bezel is a detail that frames the front of the cab and protects your grille from minor bumps and rubs. Most manufacturers just run with a simple cap and a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch round over like this Marshall. We'll be going for a more complicated Mad Amp picture frame style bezel in this build for that Meteor custom look. The pieces that make up the bezel in this case are just some strips with bevels cut along the front inside edge. This is super simple, so using a CNC in this case would be really inefficient and overkill, and take way too long. To get these going, you jump over to a table saw and cut 2-inch strips. For our two cabs, 12 30-inch strips did the trick. That gave us 8 pieces we needed, plus a few spares, just in case we screwed something up. Once the strips are cut, we cut a simple 45-degree chamfer along the inside front edge. I'm opting to use my ugly homemade router table with this large 45-degree chamfer bit. You can also get this done on a table saw by pitching the blade at 45. Next, cut the strips to size and lock them together by cross-cutting 45-degree miters across the top and bottom of the back side. If we've done everything right, the side bezel pieces should be locked perfectly into the space between the top and the bottom bezel strips, giving us a clean, tight 45-degree bevel all around the inside edge of the bezel. With our preliminary assembly out of the way, it's time to grab the router and round over all the corners with a 1/2 inch round over bit. We want to make sure the router is sitting completely flat while skimming the edges. The router will half hang off the edge here. It's super easy to gouge an edge in this step if you're not paying attention, so take it slow and go easy and shallow passes and sneak up to where you need it to be. Make sure the router is cutting down into the face and never into the edge. It'll avoid a ton of tear out and swearing. Our design will have 2 vinyl beads on each cab towards the front and the back, running around the perimeter. To do this, we'll need to cut a couple of 8-inch channels all around each cab with a trim router. We'll need a little jig for this to hug the edge of the cab and to use it as a guide to keep everything true. I modified the edge guide that came with my trim router by mounting a small piece of MDF. Before diving into this part, I did a couple of practice cuts on a scrap piece to set the perfect depth. Ideally, you want the beading to sit flush with the top of the tolex. And you want to go slow here. It's really easy to stray off the edge if you're not paying attention. We want to try and maintain a consistent depth in our channel around the roundovers while keeping the line straight so it meets up with the mate on the next plane. The jig can easily slip on these corners. A good trick here is to start this process with the back bead at the bottom of the cab. you're most likely to mess up on the first cut while you're getting your feel for the move. If you have a mishap, it's more likely to be somewhere hidden or less obvious if you start in those hidden areas. This step is pretty stressful, but it's not a deal breaker. So if it doesn't go as planned and you kind of stray off or their lines are crooked or whatever, they're purely aesthetic and the channels will be totally invisible under Tolex if you decide not to install them. Well, another one down. Next up, we'll be tackling the scary business of detailing and final assembly. Once again, please like, subscribe, and share if you're digging these videos. Hit the bell to get notifications when we drop the next episode. We'll try to be a little more punctual moving forward. Oh, and be sure to check out our other builds on our YouTube page and social channels, and check badpixel.ca for merch, yada, yada, yada. If you have any questions or suggestions, please comment below. Happy to elaborate on anything we skimmed over. Thanks again for watching. Take care, stay safe. See you next time.